Thank you, Erin. And good morning to all of you here in the sanctuary and those of you joining us virtually. My name's Ruth Stanton, and I'm so happy to be here on this sunny day, serving as your worship associate. Our minister, Scott Neely, is out of the pulpit one Sunday a month. It's the way we try to return some of the energy and love that he gives to his work here with us, and he'll be back in the pulpit again next week. Today we are very glad to have a wonderful guest speaker, Greg Boeshaar. We're looking forward to his message in August, but he was unable to be present. Fortunately, Dr. Boeshaar is here with us today. Yes. He has a BS in physics from Wittenberg University and a PhD in astronomy from the Ohio State University. He's published research articles on the chemical composition and evolution of nebula and galaxies. He has taught at Seattle University and the University of Oregon. For 30 years, in support of NASA, he worked on the development of the Hubble Space Telescope, atmospheric data archiving, and feasibility assessments of solar system science missions. Wow. He teaches now for the Wofford Physics Department and is researching a book on cosmic evolution. Just to have a broad approach to our universe, he has trained golden retrievers in obedience, agility, and therapy work, and now relaxes with 3 border collies. And now we have our announcements.
Good morning. My name is Gail Stevenson, and I serve as the treasurer for the Board of Trustees of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spartanburg. I am delighted to welcome you all here this morning, whether you are here at the church or virtually. This is a welcoming congregation where everyone is welcome just as we are. If you are visiting with us this morning, we would love to meet you and share more about the life of this congregation. Visitors' cards may be found in the pocket in the back of the chair in front of you. Please feel free to fill one out and place it in the offering plate during the service so we can connect with you. There are many important announcements in the sheets titled Connect at the back of your bulletin this morning. Please open your bulletin to see all that you can be a part of. This fall, our Mission Vision Covenant team is hosting a final series of gatherings to work on the mission objectives that will guide us over the next few years. You can find information about these discernment meetings, including the dates, on the front page of the Connect. Our first 2 gatherings were an overwhelming success. There are only 2 more to choose from, so please make plans to attend one of the meetings and the November 18th church-wide meeting where we will determine our mission objectives together. All of us have an idea of what we want this congregation to be. That is to say, we each have a vision for this congregation, and our many visions are not all the same. These meetings will help us align our many visions into a shared vision, reduce conflict by having shared purpose, and fuse our energy and gifts to enhance the life of this congregation for all of us, so please do come. Thank you for making this a place of care and kindness for every one of us. Thank you for making this a place of joy.
I'm going to put a plug in for one other announcement that's in Connect, and it's under Justice. So if y'all would just take special care to the information on the Skuja Fall Festival. UU churches from all around South Carolina are going to be getting together at this festival. And I'll just let you read over that on your own. For our chalice lighting today, we have Blessed is the Fire That Burns Deep in the Soul by Eric A. Heller-Wagner. Blessed is the fire that burns deep in the soul. It is the flame of the human spirit touched into being by the mystery of life. It is the fire of reason, the fire of compassion, the fire of community, the fire of justice, the fire of faith. It is the fire of love burning deep in the human heart, the divine glow in every life. And now if you'll turn to hymn number 38 in the gray hymn book and stand as you're willing and able to sing together, Morning Has Broken. Y'all sounded great this morning. At UUCS, we have a tradition of sharing our joys and sorrows through the metaphor of the rippling bowl. In just a moment, I'm going to invite you forward to place a stone or a shell in our bowl. The water in the bowl is calm and still right now, and when we add our stone or shell, it adds energy to the bowl that we can see as ripples. The stones and shells we drop in may represent our sorrows or concerns, and that when they're shared with each other, the sorrows can diminish and the joys can increase. To include our virtual participants, I'm going to put a shell and a stone in the bowl for you to hold a space. And you may now come forward.
I said, Julian, you are holy, you are holding my hand, and Julian, you are holy, you are holding my hand. She said, all will be well, all will be well, all manner of things will be well. I said, Julian, do you not know about sorrow? And Julian, do you not know about pain? I said, Julian, do you not know about hunger? And Julian, do you not know about shame? She said, all will be well, all will be well, all manner of things will be well. I said, Julian, do you not know about loneliness? And Julian, do you not know about disease? I said, Julian, do you not know about cruelty? Julian, it's too much, it's brought me to my knees. She said, all will be well, and all will be well, all manner of things will be well. She said, no one does not know about sorrow. No one does not know about pain. She said, no one does not know about hunger, and no one does not know about shame. She said, all will be well, all will be well, all manner of things will be well. She said, no one does not know about loneliness. No one does not know about disease. She said, no one does not know about cruelty. She said, I know it's too much. It brought me to my knees, where I heard all will be well, all will be well, all manner of things will be well. I said, Julian, you are holy, you are holding my hand, and Julian, you are holy, you are holding my hand. She said, all will be well, all will be well, all manner of things will be well. She said, baby girl, do you not know about tenderness? And baby girl, do you not know about friends? And baby girl, do you not know about the Spirit? She said, baby girl, do you not know it's only love that never ends? And so all will be well, and all will be well, all manner of things will be well, and so all will be well, and all will be well, all manner of things will be well.
Amen to that. Thank you so much. That music was beautiful, and that particular song just makes me breathe in and then out with a sense of calm and being ready for whatever comes. Our denomination doesn't have a particular creed that we have to believe in order to be members, but we're still thoughtful and deeply committed. In fact, our congregation created our own covenant to express just how we want to be in relationship with each other and our surrounding world. Our covenant's in the program and also underneath the live stream. Please join me in saying our covenant together. We are a people of faith and hope. Together we covenant to strive to become our better selves, to honor both the critical mind and the generous heart, and prove that diversity need not mean divisiveness, and to respond to systems of violence and oppression with the power of a love beyond belief. Well, we're very glad to be together and also to have our weekly opportunity to greet each other. As very diverse people, some of us love to greet, we're very exuberant, and some of us are more quiet. Please check in with those you're greeting for clues on how exuberant to be. We want to respect everybody's personal space. And one more thing, once we've been greeting for a minute, Aaron is going to start playing, and that's our clue to return to our seats because we have more good things coming. Let the greeting begin. The exuberance was great, but y'all are doing great at settling down too today. Our church and its work are supported through the generous donations of our members and our friends. I know many of you give electronically at other times, but even so, as the plate goes by, please add your blessings, even if it's not time for you to contribute financially. And please know that if circumstances preclude your financial support, your presence with us is gift enough. As part of our work, we share the plate with a different social justice organization every month, and half of the offering cash and any designated gifts will go towards that special organization. And this month, our Share the Plate recipient is with Valkyrie Supply, and we've talked about that before, but it is a service at Converse College that reaches out to students who are experiencing food insecurity and having other difficulties. So we're very happy to support them with this September's Share the Plate. The offering will now be gratefully received. Well, I feel like we just kind of flew around the galaxy with that. Thank you, Aaron. So our reading today is The Fire and the Rose from the Four Quartets by T.S. Eliot. We shall not cease from exploration, and at the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. Through the unknown, unremembered gate, when the last of earth left to discover is that which was the beginning. At the source of the longest river, the voice of the hidden waterfall, and the children in the apple tree, not known because not looked for, but heard, half heard in the stillness between two waves of the sea. Quick now, here, now, always. A condition of complete simplicity costing not less than everything. And all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well, when the tongues of flame are enfolded into the crowned knot of fire, and the fire and the rose are one. Please join me in a moment of silence. Let's welcome Dr. Greg Boeshaar.
I am told with the green button that you can hear me. Is that true? Good. I always pick on a test student in the back for that. Good. I teach at Wofford. It's how I enjoy my retirement. I retired from NASA working on Hubble and a variety of other things that were more pleasure and interesting than one life should really encompass. But it's been a very, very wonderful trip. I found in 2011 I couldn't retire. I just couldn't stand not doing anything, and ended up, while we were still living, my wife and I, in southeastern Virginia, that I ended up with 4 jobs. Consulting, I was wearing myself out in retirement, and then as we aged and got too much property to really take care of, our daughter, who lives in Chesney, said, the one of the 3, the middle, said, I drew the short straw. I'm supposed to take care of you in your old age. Could you please move closer? I don't want to have to drive 8 hours to look in on you. So we moved. It's been a good move. We found a nice house in Boiling Springs with more yards still than I really want to take care of, but slowly that's getting handled. I find that at 78, which I finally made it to, it's not fun to mow in the sun. But I congratulate Ruth on 2 things. The pronunciation of my last name, absolutely perfect. My students say Dr. B or Dr. Greg. I forgive them for that. It's an ominous name. The other thing that she said was the Ohio State University, which is the legally required pronunciation of it, to distinguish it from those other 2 OSUs, Oregon, Oklahoma. But I take a little pride this morning because they beat Notre Dame yesterday. That's always... I talked to her maybe 2-3 years ago. I enjoyed it a lot. I have a kind of ecumenical background, which from talking to Scott Neely seems to fit the mix of the covenant or congregation, as you will. I was born and raised as a Presbyterian, kind of in basically a country club church that was far more exclusive than it was inclusive. That's why I enjoy this environment. And why I didn't enjoy that, I became a Lutheran for 4 years at Wittenberg, went to Ohio State, married my first wife. We were together for 10 years, and so for that time I was a Catholic in law and a Lithuanian in law. It was an interesting mix. After which I met my current wife. We've been together now over 40 years. She could be described as an agnostic Methodist, and that works. I'm not much for organized, but I kind of like this environment. So I'm going to share with you some thoughts that are really kind of at the cutting edge of astronomy, which in itself is extremely inclusive. We now look at the universe. You can see that. Freeman Dyson is a very famous British theoretical physicist who's done a lot of good work, although unfortunately for him, the only thing he's usually thought of is a Dyson sphere, which was this wild flight of fancy he had about putting big solar arrays around the sun and beaming energy back to Earth. Now, every time somebody sees in the sky a star that changes brightness, they say, it must be aliens who've built a Dyson sphere around their star. No. But he has the same view that a lot of us come to as we look at the universe. It is not a place. It is a process. We are part of that process, and we have been part of that process in a strictly straight line mode. It looks like where we are, and probably where other creatures with intelligence might also be, is not a chance, particularly. It's also not overwhelming, as some of my students start to think, because the universe is big. I had a student once stop in my office and look at me and say, "Space is big." I didn't argue. But the thing that keeps it from being overwhelming is here we are, little creatures scurrying around on a little rock, sitting around a very average star that is only one of 200 billion stars in our galaxy, which is only one of trillions and trillions of galaxies. And yet, from what we were able to observe on the Earth's surface and later in labs, look at, and as I say, science is mostly looking. Yogi Berra said it well best, you can observe a lot by just watching. That's what science really is. We have seen things, we've tried to make sense of them, we've built a structure of how physics actually works, and that has allowed us, piece by piece, to work our way back through the evolution of the system. We see it from where we are. The universe evolved the other direction, but we've been able to use that physics, see that it's the same physics that we see exhibited everywhere. As a for instance, we have 92 elements. We know them from the structure and the spectra. They all have unique fingerprints. And if we look around the universe, that's the only 92 elements we see, and we see all of them everywhere we look. So there's a common base there somewhere, and it's called the science of physics, chemistry, and the like. And that has allowed us, along with telescopes, to piecemeal our way back and build the whole story. And science is not a sense of looking for reality, it's a sense of explaining what we see. That is all science can do. And I personally think it's a wonderful way of building your overall view of how the world actually is. Dyson said it best. He said, everything I've seen makes it look as though the universe 14 billion years ago kind of knew we were coming. He meant it in the sense that the process that started there have come to us once they were started, just coasted. So everything that is us and everything that came into being to make the material that is us started 14 billion years ago. The gentleman there is a priest from Belgium who back in the 30s said, okay, if I look at what I see, which is everything expanding apart, I come to the logical conclusion that at some point, if you ran the clock backwards, it was all in one place. That was an amazing thing because it essentially said there was a beginning. We don't know what came before the beginning. That is not because we don't particularly know, it's just because we have so many ideas that we can't prove that it could be any of them, or something we've never thought of. But the universe had a beginning 14 billion years ago, and it started out as an explosion of all of space and time. That means that everything we see, this space right here that I'm holding, it's not heavy, you can compress it. This space was present at the Big Bang. It was much more compact, but everything of space and time that we see seems to have expanded out from that point. So we're all bound to the same space and time. That energy drove the expansion. We understand that there's a clock. We know that computers run. They make nice things sometimes. They run on energy called electricity, and they run on something that sequences them so they don't get confused and go forward or backward. And in physics, we call that entropy, or the arrow of time. There seem to be laws in place which say things move from highly organized material where everything is packed together in the same state at one point to much more disorder, and it doesn't go the other way. Drop your wife's favorite wine glass on the floor, it will not spontaneously go back to a wine glass no matter how hard you wish. So you will hear about it, at least I would. There are 4 major subroutines that we know from physics that seem to work everywhere. Gravity, drop something. Electromagnetic, the process of light. Strong nuclear, which binds the nucleus of atoms together, the strongest force. And something called the weak force, which has to do with the way particles interact. You don't need to know that. But they seem to have come into existence, and I know this sounds to the uninitiated or the disbelievers, which I occasionally am, that we knew they were all there 10 to the minus 36th of a second after the universe came into being. How do we know that? Well, we make calculations because, believe it or not, we didn't have anybody on site. There was no Fox film crew filming the thing. But if we do some of the things that Fox doesn't, which is apply logic to what we see now, you can work back, and we don't find inconsistencies with the way we see it having evolved. And it leaves a lot of signatures. So, in effect, less than a second after the universe was created, whatever the managing entity was, whoever was the chief of operations, could literally have sat back, propped his feet on a table, and watched everything continue from there out, probably, if it were me, saying, beer. But it's run itself ever since, and we can see what it has done in the meantime, and it encompasses everything that makes us. We know that, well, in the upper left, that is the most famous picture in astronomy. It was taken with a radio telescope. After radiation was found by 2 people at Bell Labs who were working for Bell Labs trying to determine whether moving to microwave relay antennas was going to work, Bell Labs was only worried about whether there was noise interference from the universe that would degrade their signal. So these guys built a big trumpet to scan for any noise. They found some. Everywhere they looked, a very faint signal and if you look at light of a certain spectral shape, you can tell its temperature. It was at 3 degrees above absolute zero. They didn't know what it was. They didn't believe it. They swept pigeon droppings out of their large antenna, hoping that that was the source of the noise. They went to Princeton. They looked at one of the more famous cosmologists and said, "Bob, can you help us? We got this strange thing seeming to come from everywhere in space all the time with a temperature of 3 degrees. Robert Dickey threw his papers over his shoulders, called his research team together and said, "We've been scooped." He had been calculating that that's what they should see. It's the remnant of the Big Bang having spread out. As we got better information, we saw it had structure. It wasn't uniform. You can see the modeling. If you model how that would have contracted as the universe itself expanded and cooled and made things that were at that point cool enough to hold together, like galaxies, stars, and the like, you saw that spider web, which everybody, if they're being wistful, says, that looks like a cosmic brain. Yeah, a little bit. That comes from expanding the 3-degree background blueprint. If you look today, you see galaxies by the billions, and their distribution seems to mimic that same structure. There's strings and clusters and areas where there isn't anything. So it looks like the universe, when it expanded, produced the galaxies we see. Along the line, back before the 3-degree Kelvin escaped for us to see, it had taken elementary particles which eventually formed out of an extremely hot plasma. It was too hot for the material we see as matter to exist. Became elementary particles, quarks, leptons, and all that sort of silliness. At one point, it cooled enough so that some of them, the quarks, stuck together and made protons and neutrons. And they made them in a sort of strange way. The neutrons were a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a percent more massive than the protons. If we look at the way elements were built from hydrogen on down, if that hadn't been the case, if the protons had been heavier, everything would have become helium, which is inert, and no other material would be in the universe. That was a very important, very small fraction of a percent. In addition, when we see that structure, if you calculate the speed of the expansion of this big hot ball of gas as it's cooling and that stuff can condense out of it, the people who do these calculations, which is not me, I'm a little more simple-minded than some of the tensor calculus they use, says that if at the very early stage that expansion had been a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a percent faster, the universe would have been expanding so fast that little centers of gravity would never have built, and there would be no galaxies in the universe at all, just cold matter spread uniformly across. That's an important fraction of a percent. So, what about the other case? What about if it expanded a little more slowly? They calculate just a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a percent. I don't check their numbers. I take their word for it at some point. We all do. What would have happened? All of those galaxies have mass, so they're all gravitationally pulling back on all the other galaxies. If they'd been moving with a little less momentum, they would have collapsed back into a gigantic black hole, and we wouldn't be having this conversation either. Two things that had to be exactly the way they were, I will qualify it in this universe anyway, for us to be. But they were. Plan or physics. Then these large pinwheels in space, which were made of the first stars, and everything in them was either hydrogen or helium, because that's all we can see having been made in the first stages of the universe. And we check. We look at the abundances in stars in our galaxy. We see older parts of our galaxy, and younger parts. The younger parts have a large amount of things that the Aboriginal astronomer calls metals. They aren't. They're carbon, nitrogen, oxygen. But because otherwise the universe is almost 100% hydrogen and helium, it's a convenient measure of how much matter has evolved. We calculate backwards to the first stars. They were all hydrogen and helium. 75% hydrogen, 25% helium. Not that you need to remember that because you don't take the first quiz. Everything else was built up. It was built up by these large pinwheels of creation, which spin gravitational fields that draw out into spiral arms, squeeze together material, allow stars to condense. The stars themselves are a balance. They have gravity. They collapse out. They squeeze down. If that were all there is, there wouldn't be any stars. There'd all be black holes. But as they collapse, because if you drop something, it speeds up, okay? Speed is basically heat. As they collapse, they heat a lot. When they get, like our sun, 15 million degrees or so in the core, that's hot enough for those little plus charged protons not to deflect each other. They go too fast, and they stick. And they fuse into deuterium, and then into helium. The core of our sun shines because it's doing fusion. It's at the right temperature, and in doing so, converts hydrogen into helium. When that no longer produces enough energy to push back on gravity, the core will contract and heat a little more until helium can form carbon. And that keeps going in stages of the stars if you have enough mass, qualification, to build everything that we know on the periodic table up to iron. Everything we see that is heavier than hydrogen and helium was once in the internal part of a star. Stars, when they run out, can't make anything more after iron anyway, or don't get hot enough. That gravity is still there, and it collapses down, and the star explodes. And the stuff that was in the star, in the supernova, comes back, goes to that interstellar gas. Oh, what did I do? And enriches it in everything else. Now, I said it builds up to iron. Nothing else can do by fusion. In the 15 minutes, just after an explosion of supernova, there's a large flux of neutrons. Everything is very hot, moving very fast. And the elements that are there capture some of those neutrons and build all the rest of the table. That's why, ladies, this stuff, gold, is so expensive. Platinum is expensive. Everything is expensive, but particularly those, because they only occur in 15 minutes after the explosion of a small fraction of the number of very massive stars. That's why all the gold ever mined on Earth could fill 3 Olympic-sized swimming pools. It's rare, but we know where it came from. Not only do you see the supernova in the center that distributes that back into interstellar space so that the next generation of stars has some of those heavier elements. Obviously, we weren't around after the first generation because there was no carbon, nitrogen, or oxygen. That builds up with time, and so each generation has a little more of those things that the astronomer calls metals. They also tend to trigger collapses of stars into solar systems. We know that's what formed our solar system. As it collapsed, if that cloud was rotating, it would start spinning like a skater and flatten out into a disk. In the disk, planets form. I spend more time on that. But the bottom line is everything on that periodic table relates to a certain stage in the evolution of stars. No, I won't. You can study it later. No. And we understand that. We understand where things come, and some of those are very important. There are 92 elements or so. We are made up of 40 of them. Mostly we're made up of carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and heat and hydrogen. They form chain molecules and have, over the space of time, build up in abundance in the universe, which amazingly gets concentrated by the universe when planets form and produces life. It's a lot more logical than we used to think. Okay, the planets we form, I got out of step. We have several that are sort of good for life. Earth is the best. It's just right. Mercury's too close to the sun. It's 600 degrees on one side, minus 300 on the other, no atmosphere. Venus is another story. It's a little too close to the sun. The surface of Venus is probably where the idea of biblical hell came from. It's 700 degrees Fahrenheit. If you put a block of lead on it, it would melt. The pressure is huge. The clouds are sulfuric acid, and it's not supporting life. Mars is a little further out. It could have been another Earth, except in the way it formed, it was a little too small to hold on to its atmosphere and its internal heat. So in our solar system, there's only one where we're comfortable, here. We should worship that. It's a just right planet, just the right space, just the right amount of material, and water. The water is an interesting story. Earth was formed without water. It was hot and barren. And then an accident occurred in the early solar system where the planet orbits weren't what we see them now. Saturn and Jupiter were fairly close. Actually, it took Saturn 2 Jupiter years to go around, so they always lined up at the same place every 2 years. And that gravitational tug over and over flipped the planet Neptune from the next one out, way out into what at that point was the asteroid belt and a patch of a lot of comets. The orbits realigned, but Neptune ran through all those comets, knocked them out of their orbits. They hit planets. They caused Mercury to lose most of its outer covering. Venus got tipped over. We got a moon out of one of the collisions. And we got pounded. So if there had been life there, it would have been gone. But comets are made of water. All of the water we see in the oceans of the Earth came from comets' collisions. And the thing that made that valuable is that water contained elements like amino acids, hydrocarbons. We can see those in interstellar space. All the basis for life was delivered. Now you need time and you need a heat source. We used to think it just sat in a pool, congealed, and became us. Actually, volcanic vents did the job. They still do the job. We can see it occurring in the bed of the ocean at the greatest depths where sun has never shone. The temperature is cold, but at a volcanic vent, as you see in the middle at the top, the things that you see there are life, plants and fish that developed insight at the bottom of the ocean. We know the conditions can produce life fairly easily. Okay. So, Earth, a gift 14 billion years in the making. Are we doing well with that? Not so much. It took 14 billion years to make, and in the last 400, we've made significant differences. We know the air is not getting that much hotter, yeah, but carbon dioxide is increasing in the air, which drives up the temperature, except our oceans absorb that heat first. The ocean temperatures have gone up by 2 or 3 degrees globally. We see that because the coral, instead of being the very pretty picture on the lower left, looks like the thing in the center for 50% of the world's coral. Not good. I like the cartoon at the bottom. People ask, why is this happening? The punchline is, from Pogo, we have met the enemy, and it is us. Can we keep the gift we have, and can we keep the life on the planet? We worked hard. We exterminated wolves from Yellowstone Park by 1926 in their entirety. That led, because they were a key part of the whole ecology, to a collapse of that. The measure that's most striking is there had been 12 large beaver colonies making habitat for aquatic species in 1926. By 1960, there was one. The trees were going away because the elk didn't migrate, and they clear-cut them. The park was going downhill in a big hurry until a few people finally convinced Congress that we could bring back wolves, and that might stabilize the thing. And besides, that might be a good thing for our souls to do, to undo the damage we had. They came back in the 1990s, and the park has recovered. Not entirely, but there are now 9 active beaver colonies. So we didn't kill it off. And we got there because people cared enough to raise their voices and try to do something. And as you all understand, we're all in this together. And Jane Goodall pointed out that you can get depressed by that sort of thing, and say, what can I do? I'm only one person. She has a couple good books out that says Global Disaster, Local Recovery. Pick something. I like to save dogs. Go to a shelter, work there. Pick up litter. Do one thing that means something to you, and it will, with time, make a difference. We changed that, possibly because the space program inadvertently told us we were all in the same place and on the same boat together. And what we do does make a difference. The butterfly effect is important in physics because if you just have the physics and you let it run, why do you get such varied things in the universe? They're all over the place. We have a moon that's cold and dead. Jupiter has one that is most geologically active. There are 400 active volcanoes on Jupiter. Saturn has a moon that has an atmosphere that's twice as thick as the Earth. Same physics. Different initial conditions. That makes a difference. And it makes a difference to all of us because you can't track how that works, and you can't track how anything that you do will affect everybody else. What time should I end? Okay. One quick story then. I'm a professor, I talk forever. My wife tells me that. You can't track how these changes come about, but we know each and one of us is a unique creation because of everything that played into our existence. You can't track the butterfly effect. It's an imponderable. We know it works. There's a story told by a person who's much better at motivating people than I tend to be. When I look at my first exam, I'm always a little, But he said he was working on a talk. He was ironing a sleeve of his shirt, and this was back when that happened. Back when Ken Jennings was still alive on ABC News, and they had the thing. I sympathize. They had that Person of the Week thing, where somebody would be honored, and he heard in the background. And I'm going to ask how many know this guy. That the Person of the Week for whatever the date was Norman Borlaug. Norman Borlaug won a Nobel Prize for his work. Like many of the true heroes of the planet, nobody recognizes the name, but he was Person of the Week for that because he had a station that was set up by the US government in Mexico to hybridize corn and wheat to be productive in arid climates, like the Dust Bowl, Siberia, etc. He succeeded. The people who gave him the Nobel Prize said their calculations said he had saved the lives of 2 billion people. Norman? This guy said, wait a minute, it wasn't Norman at all. It was Henry Wallace. And everybody goes, who's Henry Wallace? He was the second vice president of Franklin Roosevelt. He had been an agricultural secretary. He set up that station, and he hired Norman Borlaug to man it. And so the speaker said, shouldn't it have been Henry Wallace? Then he paused, and he said, or maybe George Washington Carver. Back at the Iowa State University, when Carver was a young student, there was a dairy sciences professor who sent his 6-year-old son with Carver out on botanical field trips every Saturday and Sunday. That child was Henry Wallace. He put in him a love of plants and a vision of what they could do for humanity. So, maybe it was George Washington Carver. Or the farmer in Diamond, Missouri. Step back another one. In the 1860s, in Missouri, which was a slave state, there was a farmer named Moses, whose wife Susan. They did not believe in slavery, and so they were unfortunately prone to get visits from Cantrell's raiders who would burn barns, kill people, and the like if they weren't thinking the same thing that Cantrell was. And one night they came through and they kidnapped Susan's best friend, who was a black lady named Mary Washington. And she grabbed her infant son to try to save him, and they were both taken away. Susan sent out word, we would like to meet with these monsters, not calling them that, and see if we could do a trade to get those two people back. She did arrange a meeting, and Moses traveled north to the Kansas border. At midnight, he met Cantrell's raiders, 4 of them, the sacks with the eye holes, etc., traded the only horse he had left on the farm, and they tossed him a bundle, a burlap bundle. This is January. He got down on the ground, opened it up, and found Mary's baby boy. He put him in his coat, bundled him up, walked all the way back, took 2 days to his farm. They promised that child that they would, in honor of his mother, they knew she was dead, they would educate him in her honor and give him their last name. So little George Washington, guess what the last name of Moses and Susan? Carver. The point is, you don't know where the effects of something you do stops. You make effects everywhere. So it's not overwhelming to try to help our friend the earth or anything else. People on the earth who are not respected. Anything you do will make a difference for all of us and forever. Okay, at that point I will stop, and instead of doing my Vulcan thing, wish you the other thing. May the force be with you.
Well, that was great. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your insights on the universe. Before you got to the Earth being the Goldilocks planet, I was like, the start of the universe was a Goldilocks timing, and then you came up with the next thing, the Goldilocks planet. Anyway, and also thank you for really ending up with that. We're all in this together, and what we do can matter. So. Thank you. So for extinguishing our chalice, once again from T.S. Eliot, quick now, here, now, always, a condition of complete simplicity, costing not less than everything, and all shall be well, and all manner of thing shall be well, when the tongues of flame are enfolded into the crowned knot of fire, and the fire and the rose are one. As we leave, here are some, whoops, I don't want to skip our hymn. I skipped our hymn, and it's a good hymn. However, we're running a little late, so we still have our closing song. So as we leave, here are some words from Sarah Moores Campbell. It is number 701 in the hymn book if you'd like to read along with, but I'll just start right in. We receive fragments of holiness and glimpses of eternity, brief moments of insight. Let us gather them up for the precious gifts that they are, and renewed by their grace, move boldly into the unknown. Thank you.